Everyone, welcome to Grid Live Prix NASCAR Cup Series Iowa Corner 350, the Hungarian Grand Prix Formula One at the Hungarian. Tanner Smith from Pitbox Press, the editor of pitboxpress.com. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in Grid Network through Patreon. Link in the video description. Go to the Patreon website and start investing into Grid Network. Help us stay on the air. And we got the big race weekend next weekend. Portland Grand Prix. We'll be at the track. Myself, Nicole will be there, and special pre-race coverage right here on the Grid Network. So subscribe, hit the bell icon, and Grid Network TV across social media and our website, gridnetworktv.com. Tanner, we're a little bit on the air late just so we can allow the qualifying for the NASCAR Cup Series to wrap up. At the end of the day, Chase Briscoe, another pole. I believe it was last race week when we talked about bonus points for most polls. I feel like we're at the point, if that was something existing in the regular season, Chase Briscoe now has that locked up. We only have 4 races left in the regular season, and Chase Briscoe, 1 win, but the big thing is he has all these polls, but has failed to convert them to wins. I feel in Formula One, IndyCar, that's a big red flag, but this is NASCAR, long races, 36-plus cars, stages. Considering where we are this season, 4 races left, he has 1 race win, and he is among a crowded field of drivers with 1 race win in the playoffs. Not a whole lot of separation. Is there any pressure to convert more poles to wins?
I don't feel like there is right now, considering this is the first year of the JGR Chase Briscoe partnership. That seems like it's built to last for a little bit longer than 1 year. With that said, though, with all of this speed that we consistently see out of the 19 team, even extending back to the Martin Truex era, there has been a startling lack of victories in that time, especially last year when at this race 1 year ago, Martin Truex Jr. announced his retirement, and like any other driver that is heading on their way out, they want to go out on a high note and obviously win one last race for their fans to celebrate prior to them checking out. And unfortunately, Truex and James Small were unable to accomplish that last year despite having very strong qualifying efforts. And this, unfortunately, just stems back to what my main concern is with James Small as a Cup Series crew chief. Can he keep up with a racetrack and put his driver in a position to win? And he consistently fails at that in the next-gen era. And it brings me no joy in saying this, believe me, that, I want to see all of these drivers and teams, act at their full potential at all times, but I'm starting to worry that James Small just isn't cracked up to be in the Cup Series at this point in his career. He has shown time and time again that he isn't really able to get the most out of his equipment and keep up with a racetrack throughout a race. We saw it last weekend, and we've seen it literally 5 other times this year where they've gotten the pole and haven't really competed. So as far as the 19 team in general, yeah, there's probably some pressure there. But for Briscoe himself, I mean, he might have some internal pressure on himself that he's, applying to try to get some more playoff points, get some more wins. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine JGR is too mad at him after, outwinning his previous driver from last year in Truex, who managed to go winless in 2024. So, yeah, I can't imagine there's too much pressure on him from the organization, but the organization itself needs to be a little bit harder on the 19 team. It's great that you're showing all this speed on Saturdays, but it really needs to translate to stage 3 on Sundays, and it never seems to.
Stage 3 on Sunday is the money stage where you win that stage, you're obviously the race winner besides the Coca-Cola 600, but that's another discussion for another day. Overall, I feel Chase Briscoe, he has shown his speed. It's just trying to get it to the distance, show that car, that team's capable of evolving with the track, and it's just not there. And crew chief, I I feel overall Chase Briscoe's proven what he could do. I think there was a lot of people anticipate, okay, is he just a filler for another driver coming up? I think he's proven himself that he belongs to be in that seat. Question is for the crew chief, especially next year. If that team goes out in the first round of the playoffs, I think that would be a big disappointment for the 19 team to have that. So it'll be interesting to see how the playoffs will shape up for that team. Kyle Busch, on the other hand, of course, used to be with Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't anticipate he's going to be in the playoffs. Of course, he had a hard crash in practice, entering turn one, got loose, going to the backup car, will have to start last, no qualifying laps at all. RCR, I just feel this is turning from what started to be a bad week last Saturday with what happened with Austin Hill to then the suspension. Now you have this. The last couple of races, RC has been on the radio slamming the team for not bringing race cars. And now they're coming to Richmond, where we know what happened last year. Probably not the most greatest of memories. And with so close to the regular season, there's chances of them not making the playoffs. It just looks more and more like they're relying on Daytona. Is Richard Childress Racing in trouble with the potential of no drivers in the playoff? And then, of course, the mess they got with Austin Hill currently this weekend. Seems like Iowa's going to be a wash.
Oh, it's absolutely going to be a wash. And it's really unfortunate when you really think about it, because Iowa was built off a lot of the same principles structurally, I should say. It's based off of Richmond is essentially what I'm trying to get at. And obviously, as we know, Austin Dillon and the 3 team put together a really strong car at Richmond last year, good enough to win the race prior to the overtime calamities that ensued. And you would have thought that also given Kyle Busch's extensive success at Richmond as well, that both cars would have some opportunity to contend this weekend. And unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like they unloaded with a lot of speed for another time this season, what seems like the 21st week out of 22 this year. The only other time they've really been competitive this year was at COTA, when Kyle Busch did have a chance to win and probably would have won had there not been a late caution that stacked the field back up, but we'll never know. As for RCR and the state of them as a whole, I've been banging the drum about it for weeks, probably years, if you've been following me on social media. Austin Dillon, you need to be in management, my man. You've accomplished everything you are going to accomplish in the NASCAR Cup Series. You have won crown jewels at the Daytona 500 and at the Coca-Cola 600. That's a very fine career. There's nothing to be ashamed of on top of your Xfinity and truck titles. You are much better served at this point in your life as a management body at Richard Childress Racing. I mean, look what you did. You recruited a 2-time champion, the guy that at the time was the active wins leader in the sport, to your race team. And you got 3 wins with him in 15 races his very first season, and you all have done diddly squat since then. So at this point, you need to look in the mirror and recognize what you are good at and what is best for the team, because having Jesse Love potentially go over to Legacy Motor Club, or some of the other rumors we've been hearing swirling around about their top talent in Xfinity going somewhere else, you could just let him have the 3 car and kind of get Richard out of the leadership roles, because clearly he can't keep track of anything that he says. And I just really don't think that we can really glean much from analyzing Richard Childress's words and actions, because something clearly isn't adding up over there. As far as the Austin Hill suspension is concerned, I think the punishment could have been worse, considering the track and the very obvious nature of what he was trying to do. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad he got suspended at least the 1 race, which is kind of ironic considering just 6 short years ago, when he was just a rookie in the not a rookie, but his first year with Hattori Enterprises back in the Truck Series. This is where he and Johnny Sauter got into a very infamous fight out on the racetrack that ended up in Sauter getting suspended for over aggressive driving. I do find it kind of funny that Hill isn't even going to race this weekend at Iowa, considering last week's actions. So just to sum up everything, RCR has been in trouble, honestly, since Tyler Reddick decided to go somewhere else. I feel like that organization has just been stagnating for as long as they've had Austin Dillon as part of their driver lineup, which is in its 12th season now. So I feel like if RCR can move on from their quote-unquote flagship driver and get someone in the car that can actually help build them up and keep them pushing forward, keep moving the needle, then they'll be in a lot better shape. But, I mean, I have no confidence that this team is built to win a race right now. Not today, not this weekend, not this year, and probably not even next year, because it doesn't look like the Camaro body is changing for 2026 for Chevy. So, yeah, I feel like right now RCR is probably the fourth Chevy team, which is just insane to think about considering they are powering the engine program over there. I would put, obviously, Hendrick above them. Trackhouse is doing better than them. And frankly, Spire looks better than them most weeks. So, yeah, it's really unfortunate to say about an organization that has won 6 Cup Series titles and numerous Xfinity titles as well, but somebody's got to be, somebody's got to wake people up about this at a certain point. Like, they have been in the doldrums for quite a while, and I just don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like this team is just sort of living in the past. You look at their success in the past, of course, decorated team, but what are we doing to make it better? Austin Dillon, 12 seasons in, I just don't feel there's a missing component that's preventing him from great success. I think that component is honestly the driver's seat. Austin Dillon could be great management for Richard Childress. You look at where that team is, as you mentioned, compared to Spire in qualifying. Carson Hocevar, 7th. Justin Haley, 10th. Michael McDowell, 13th. You find Austin Dillon at 18th, and of course, Kyle Busch starting 37th. That's really showing that. I mean, even AJ Allmendinger, 9th. Not a good effort out there. I think RCR's team, they are that fourth Chevrolet team. If I was them, I would really consider, okay, if Dodge is seriously rumored to come back, could we be that team for Dodge to say, hey, we're going to be that team because we want to be the number 1 Dodge team rather than the 4th Chevy team? I know it might seem really strange, the idea of the number 3 with the Dodge body, but I don't see how they're going to get around Trackhouse. I don't see how if Spire keeps doing what they're doing, they're going to be that 4th team. So I think they got to do something drastic, and I wonder if maybe this could be finally the call. Kyle Busch struggling, where they're going to finally say, we need to do something. We can't just keep trying this and that. We got to do something drastic. It'll be interesting.
Well, if you remember, Joe, back in 2012, as Dodge was preparing to unveil their Gen 6 Charger, it came out that RCR was rumored to be the one team to possibly shift over and take over the Dodge program from Team Penske. And they ended up balking on that and staying with Chevy at the time. But, I mean, with another relatively high-profile Chevy Cup team allegedly looking to move over to Dodge for 2027, one that RCR might be allied with in some ways, maybe that is a precursor to something that could happen. I think you have to, if you're RCR, you have to explore all options at this point.
Yeah, they got to look at all the different options they got there when it comes to how to improve their team, because it is not the kind of team it should be. And I think it's just a lot of not really wanting to make the hard decisions, but now they're getting to that point where I think they have to. Of course, Iowa, that's going to be a wash for them. In general, Iowa Speedway, I'm happy that, they get good turnout here. The fans have been wanting to race here. We got a different type of oval, not another 1.5 miles. But the big controversy, and it's sort of what caught Kyle Busch a little bit by surprise in the corner, this odd configuration of we repaved the corners, not the straightaways, parts of the corner actually, not the full corner, the bottom part. Here we are the second year, and we've now got this big bump on the front straightaway, which is just about literally a jump. And I just don't understand what's the theory behind this. They said they've done this to help the NASCAR product. I don't really think it has. And of course, we know it has had an adverse impact on the IndyCar product. Granted, IndyCar with the hybrid unit last year, this year was a better race, but then they lost Hy-Vee. Seemed like there was more folks at the ARCA race than there was at the IndyCar race, which is not a good look. What's going on with this madness in Iowa, from the repave to everything? I just feel like this track has potential, but could we just repave the entire track or just have something? It just seems mismanaged.
What I'm about to say might seem harsh, but know that it comes from a place of love. I love this sport very much, and I really enjoy Iowa Speedway when it is being treated as it should. What happened last year with this repave and the continued negligence to repave the rest of the facility is negligence at its highest order. I mean, I looked it up last year because I was curious what a repave could cost at any kind of a racetrack. And the best number that I found came from Road America. And as we all know, Road America is, I believe, a 4.048 mile facility. So it's very long, very wide, very large. It cost $4 million to repave that facility back in 2022. You're telling me that NASCAR, with its multi-billion-dollar enterprise that's constantly pouring money into street races, stadium races, which I'm not going to lie, these are all great things that they're doing. But again, let's just keep this in mind. They're dumping money into all of this stuff, spending all this money going to Mexico, etc. You're telling me you couldn't have dropped $1.5 million to just repave the entire Iowa facility prior to Cup going there last year and prior to IndyCar going there last year? It just seems illogical. It seems, again, negligent on their part. And granted, I enjoyed last year's Iowa Cup race. I thought it was fine. I thought it was better than I expected it was going to be. But at the same time, I really am not excited about this weekend's race. I found the IndyCar races this year to be better than last year, but I just feel like that had more to do with the IndyCar drivers being a bit more acclimated to the hybrid unit this year as opposed to last year where they were still trying to get to grips with it. So coming back this year and seeing, cars basically doing a rallycross jump into turn one every time we enter the corner. And we're going to be doing that 350 times this weekend. So keep that in mind, folks. With all that going on, I feel like something that's going to get lost in all the shuffle is just how NASCAR has mismanaged this. Like, I just don't understand how a company, again, worth millions upon billions of dollars, who is constantly talking about how, their shared revenue is going through the roof and how they just signed a new massive extension for their TV deals less than 18 months ago. I just don't get how a company like that can say that they were too broke and there just wasn't enough time to repave Iowa last year prior to the race, that they could only half-ass it, sorry for my language, and just leave it like that going forward, like it enhances the product at all. I'm sorry, in the next-gen era, don't these cars attach to multi-groove racetracks? At least that's been my pull from all of this. I mean, look at that second race at Richmond in 2022. You had cars actually going up towards the wall because there was actually grip up there. You come to this track now, going up towards the wall is a death sentence because that pavement is 18 years old. And, you compare it to the bottom 2.5, I would say, grooves, which only have about a year and some months on it. Like, it's no contest, but it completely ruins the racing product. You're making Iowa, which should race more like Richmond, into something closer to Pocono and Indianapolis. You're making it much closer to a 1 mile single groove facility, or not a 1 mile, but a single groove facility. And frankly, that's just not good enough. That's not the kind of racing product fans expect to get at Iowa. And I just feel like we're getting a lesser product because of NASCAR's negligence. And I don't think that's right. And if I were Denny Hamlin or Michael Jordan, I would mention that in, this trial that they've got coming up in December, that NASCAR deliberately neglects their facilities to, I don't know, suit some sort of narrative for them to justify moving a date to a different place. I mean, hell, they did this with Road America to move to Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa was being used as, some sort of go-between with a date that they're trying to accomplish for next year. Like, let's say maybe they'll go to Canada next year. They'll probably just chop the Iowa date off because it's a track that they own and a track that they've neglected, and obviously moved so much of the IndyCar charm away from that there's really no need to go there. And then they'll eventually sell the land for pennies on the dollar and move on. And it's really sad to think that way, but at the same time, they've given me no confidence to believe in them whatsoever. So yeah, I know that's a very pessimistic outlook on Iowa Speedway's future, but hearing that it's not coming back to IndyCar next year at all, not even for a single date, is really disheartening, because I felt that as the merger between Champ Car and IRL happened towards the end of the 2000s, Iowa became one of the tracks that became a really prominent fixture on the American open wheel schedule, and to see it potentially fall off for good is just extremely painful. But at the end of the day, it's NASCAR's facility, their property, and they'll do what they want with it. And unfortunately for them, I have the right to critique it.
A lot of moving pieces when it comes to NASCAR and the lawsuit. I think, like Denny Hamlin said, December 1st, I think a lot of us are going to be interested to see what those numbers produce. Because NASCAR, along with the TV deal, the tracks, the management, what they've done for other events, Chicago, the stadiums, it's all going to be coming out. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all shapes up now. Of course, with Iowa Speedway, this is the second time they've hosted the Cup Series. Ryan Blaney starting 6th. He won this race last year. He wants to be another winner because he only has one race win. And when you look at the Penske drivers when it comes to the playoff standards, I mean, Ryan Blaney's 7th with one win. Then you got Joey Logano 10th, Austin Cindric, and let's throw in there Josh Berry, because that is essentially a 4th Penske car, all of them with one win. Do you see any concern, particularly with the Team Penske drivers' playoff position? Because there's not a lot of room to separate themselves from the other drivers that have one win. We know you have a bad race at Darlington. You could be in a bad spot. You don't have that playoff points advantage. Overall, considering the top 4 drivers have 15 wins among them, should the Penske teams be concerned about their playoff positions?
Yes and no. I mean, they're part of a 9-driver contingent that all have one win. Chase Elliott on down to Berry. So while in some ways, yes, it's not ideal to be heading into the playoffs with one win apiece for your, combined 4 teams, I feel that at the end of the day, this playoffs gears up really well for them. I mean, let's look at the tracks that are on the playoff calendar. We have Darlington, which, granted, Ryan Blaney hasn't won there yet, but he probably should have won this year had it not been for his pit crew throwing it away and Kyle Larson wrecking himself with 5 laps to go. On top of that, Joey Logano's won there before. Josh Berry, that's a track where he should be strong at, considering his, background in late models where you have to, manage your equipment to some extent. Austin Cindric, I mean, might be a bit of a toss up for him, but we'll see. As far as Gateway is concerned, though, that's a track where the 3 Penske proper cars have all contended. Blaney has nearly won twice there. Probably should have won last year had he had even like half of a gallon left of fuel in his tank coming to the white flag, but he ended up giving the win to his teammate Austin Cindric instead. And as we all know, Logano won the opening race of that racetrack back in 2022. And then you have Bristol, where Blaney, Berry, and Logano have all been strong in the past, and Cindric is able to put up a good enough run to advance in most cases. Then you have Loudon after that, Kansas as well, tracks where all 4 of them should be somewhat competent, and obviously the Roval, where that should be Austin Cindric's cup of tea, and Joey Logano put in a very strong run last year, and Ryan Blaney was the inaugural winner of that event. Josh Berry, on the other hand, a little concerned for him there. But obviously those final 3 races, they'll have Talladega in there to help them advance to the final 4. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, in some ways, yes, they should be concerned, but Blaney has been doing a lot of side quests, I would say, to get these playoff points prior to the postseason starting. By picking up stage wins that end up adversely affecting his ability to actually contend. But at the same time, I also feel that the 12 has been one of the 3 or 4 best cars all year. It just doesn't have really the results to back it up. And normally that team heats up around this time in the regular season and coasts out through the end of the regular season into the playoffs on a hot streak. So I'm really not too concerned about them. It's an odd-numbered year. Logano, it's probably not in the cards for him to contend for a title this year. I'd expect him to get bounced either in the round of 12 or maybe even the round of 8. But I don't expect to see him contend for a title. If things break the right way, Austin Cindric could make it to the round of 8. And if he makes it to Talladega, I think all bets are off. But honestly, I think Josh Berry is overachieving this year by getting a victory in his first season with Wood Brothers, with a new team around him, essentially, with Miles Stanley on top of the box. So, yeah, as far as Team Penske as a whole, I'm really not too concerned about them just yet, but they definitely need to start racking up some playoff points this week that could help them, advance past the first round, because right now it seems like there's 9 drivers, probably extending it back to 12 if you want to include the other 3 teams that end up making it into the postseason that either haven't won or will win very late in the regular season into the field. It definitely doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room for poor performances in those first 3 races. So definitely think that Penske shouldn't be too concerned just yet, but they definitely need to pad their playoff points a little bit.
Those playoff points are going to be so critical when we get to the playoffs. Overall, we have the 4 remaining races left before we start the playoffs. 3 of those spots have yet to be claimed by a race winner. Of course, those are the spots filled with Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, and Chris Buescher. The 4 races we have, well, we got Iowa this weekend. That could be a Blaney, could be another first-time winner. Then we have Watkins Glen, and I think many are anticipating Shane Van Gisbergen win. But you do got Christopher Buescher there, who, of course, won last year when SVG hit the guardrail on the last lap. Then Richmond, Daytona, who knows what will happen. So even if we assume SVG was to win again at Watkins Glen, not repeat a race win it there, but another road course win, we could still have exactly 16 winners into the playoffs after Daytona. So for drivers like Tyler Reddick, he is 14th, 138 points above the cut line. We know the situation with his team, no charter. Can he still afford to just race his way in by the points, or does he need to go out there and secure a win, do something more drastic if we have a late caution to get that win?
I first want to say that it's really silly that we're having this conversation about a guy that has been top 5 to top 6 in points all season, barely scraping his way into the playoffs, but we'll get to that shortly, I'm sure. So to focus on Reddick, though, as a whole, I think that he should be able to make the playoffs from here with the advantage that he has to both Buescher, Bowman, etc., who sit below him in the bubble, and then especially to Ryan Prix, who is a bit further back from Buescher. So I think that if we're just looking at his prospects to make the playoffs, I definitely think last year's regular season champion should be able to advance into the playoffs this season on points. But with that said, we have a relatively new racetrack to the calendar this weekend in Iowa, so it's really anyone's guess who's going to actually contend, outside of the people that were fast last year, like Blaney, Byron, Larson. That said, you also have Richmond in that mix, which definitely had a surprise winner last year. Would have been a bit more of an earned surprise had it finished under regulation like it should have, but unfortunately Ricky Stenhouse decided to throw a wrench into everything. And as far as Watkins Glen is concerned, I know that that's definitely gearing up like it's going to be an SVG, drubbing, but I don't know. At the same time, I could see someone like Daniel Suarez, his teammate. Ross Chastain was very fast there last year. Carson Hocevar was very quick last year. Chris Buescher as well. I think that Watkins Glen might be a bit more of a toss-up than people are expecting because, as we know, in 90 laps, a lot of things can go wrong, even at a track like Watkins Glen. And then you have Daytona, obviously, which will be the ultimate toss-up. But I feel like more often than not at Daytona in this playoff era where we've shifted this over as the regular season finale. So 2020 onward, we had Byron win in 2020. He was in a position to make the playoffs regardless, but it did punch his ticket in officially and get him his first career win. In 21, we had Ryan Blaney win after the rest of the field wrecked themselves on the last lap. That was his third win of the year. In 22, we had Austin Dillon win, but that was after we decided to race in the rain into turn 1 and destroyed nearly 30 cars. And then 23, where we had Buescher win. And then 2024, where we had Harrison Burton win. So based on that trend, it seems like we alternate year after year, whether it's a repeat winner throughout the year or a first-time winner throughout the year. And it seems like we're going to be on a year where a repeat winner takes the crown at the regular season finale, and I'm going to stick to that. So I think we get more than one driver making it in on points. I just don't know who that's going to be yet, because while Alex Bowman has been in the top 10 in points most of the season, the RFK cars are surging at the right time. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Brad Keselowski go out and win tomorrow and punch his ticket to the playoffs with like 4 races to go. It'd be a pretty incredible story with him being so far down in the points. But yeah, I think that Reddick should make it in on points. I really wouldn't be too concerned, but obviously a win to lock himself in would be a bit more of a comfortable position for that 45 team who last year had so much success. And I mean, if we want to get technical with it, he's only 71 points back at Chase Elliott for the points lead. Who's to say he doesn't go out and win the regular season title again like he did last year?
Get that regular season title. That's a bonus points for the playoffs. A little trophy as well too, but the big trophy is the main thing. It'll be interesting to see. I think that was interesting. You brought up Brad Keselowski because when you look at the top 20, All of them, but two, have gotten race wins in the Cup Series. Of course, Ryan Preece looking for his first, and Ty Gibbs looking for his first. Ty Gibbs, his season has been downs. Like earlier this year, we were talking about what's wrong with that team. They were outside the top 35. They've been getting some good runs here and there. Sometimes some runs where they're just nowhere. But getting up to 19th, that's pretty good effort. And then Ryan Preece, besides the Daytona crash, he seems to put in together some solid days, good days like Las Vegas, I believe third place or fourth place there in Las Vegas. With the remaining tracks of Iowa, Watkins Glen, Richmond, and Daytona, which track is their best chance at claiming a win, especially if they need a win to secure their spot in?
Well, I would have thought that Ryan Preece's best outing would have been this weekend, but he qualified 33rd. So I really have a lot of doubts that he's going to contend this weekend. Outside of this weekend, though, for Preece, I would say probably Richmond and then obviously Daytona would be his two other great opportunities to win. But I just don't see that happening at Watkins Glen, even though he's had, a pretty decent amount of speed on the road courses this season, all things considered. As far as Ty Gibbs is concerned, though, it's got to be Watkins Glen and Daytona. I know that he has an Xfinity Series win at Richmond, but he had to practically dump his teammate to get it in the final turn. So I really wasn't too impressed by his actual craft to get that victory. I also just don't think that his team is really in a place where they're going to contend at a track like that. So if he can pull it off at Daytona, then that would probably be his best bet. But if not there, I don't see why he can't contend at Watkins Glen. He's always been fast there in his short Cup Series career as well as his Xfinity Series career. I mean, last year, he had a really good shot to win that event, or maybe it was a year. No, it was last year where Sam Mayer completely wiped him out, right? Or was that 2023? Maybe I'm getting my years mixed up. But regardless, Ty Gibbs has performed relatively well at Watkins Glen in the past, so I really wouldn't be too surprised to see him come out with the victory there. But yeah, I think that of the four remaining races, Preece has his best shot at Richmond and Daytona, and Ty Gibbs has his best shots at Watkins Glen and Daytona.
Daytona is always going to be, I think, everyone's the wild card race. Yeah, Preece having such a disappointing qualifying effort, that was a huge shock for me as well, too. I thought this could be it. Nope. Richmond, that's going to be something else, see if that team could respond, but that team, I think they're around the board when it comes to getting a win. They need to be there, but at the same time, maybe a little bit of bad luck from the others, but that's going to be really interesting to see how this all shapes up with the playoffs coming around. Now, we've been talking a lot about the playoffs, Tanner, and let's catch up a little bit more about the playoffs and some of the fallout. I think that's all sort of been kicked off really after Daniel Trotta and Larry McReynolds Sirius XM's calling out of Mark Martin and the non-playoff fans. Of course, Grid Tonight last week, they talked about it, where they were very critical, saying that a non-playoff championship will be taking the sports backwards. Well, Sunday, after the Brickyard 400, Jeff Gluck from The Athletic shared that he is on that committee for a championship format. He shared that last Sunday on the Teardown. He said he cannot name who all is in there individually, but he cannot say also who said what, but he can discuss the topics being shared, and that's what he did. According to Gluck, the consensus is a majority of the people there want a full season championship as a preferred model, citing everything from the credibility of the sport, awarding somebody for a season-long effort, and seemed to really match, of course, what we heard from Mark Martin, Denny Hamlin. However, he also mentioned that the media, mainly NBC, wants a playoff format, especially since NBC has the full NASCAR playoffs. Now, NBC does have a $7.7 billion deal to broadcast the final 14 races for the NASCAR Cup Series. So if you're NBC, you got a little bit of a louder voice, put it that way, when you have billions of dollars behind you. But then the interesting part, though, NBC's came out and in a way denied that NBC is stopping the idea of a regular season long championship. Were you surprised by what Gluck shared and NBC's response?
Not really. I know that when people with big pockets are throwing their weight around, they tend to get a little caught up. And I think this could have been one of those moments. Obviously, Jeff Gluck is not the person I'm talking about with having a big pocket. I'm talking about NBC and NASCAR. So one of two things happened here, folks, and don't get it twisted. NASCAR lied and said that NBC was the one holding everything up, or NBC was actually holding everything up, and then as soon as they got public heat for it, they immediately pivoted and said, "Oh no, we're not. No, of course we would never hold anything back like that. Please don't be mad at us." Because it's really bad PR for them with their network taking over this week for the first time to get that kind of heat from mainstream NASCAR media. So one of two things happened there. Either NASCAR is lying and passing the buck to somebody else because they are actually secretly prideful of this format, which I really think they are. Because I feel like if they weren't, we would have moved on from it a long time ago. I think that had Ryan Newman won in 2014 without winning a race, like had, I don't know, Kyle Larson won the race and Ryan Newman finished like third to end the 2014 season without a victory and win the title at Homestead in 2014, I think this format would have been dead in the water immediately. But unfortunately, that's not what we got. We ended up having Kevin Harvick, who was probably the dominant driver that year. He just didn't have the most wins, but he led 1,000 more laps than everybody else. So, yeah, I feel like with this format talk, though, it's really been encouraging to see how many people are jumping back on the season-long bandwagon. As somebody who, even as a 7-year-old, when they changed this format to the chase, I was like, that's dumb. It's nice to see that some of the adults in the room are finally waking up and smelling the flowers on the side of the road here and seeing that we don't have to do things this way. I mean, Formula One's had a season 1 points format the entire time that we have moved to a playoff format, whether it be the chase or whatever. And they've steadily increased their American viewership numbers to the point that they're having 3 races in our country now. On top of that, you have to look at IndyCar, which has fluctuated from time to time in terms of their popularity, especially considering the split back in 1995 and onward. But at the same time, NASCAR, since 2005, the second year that they would have had the chase format, has steadily decreased in viewership until this last couple of years where we've been just relatively constant at like 2.5 to 4 million watching per race at best. And as bad as that sounds, like it could be a lot worse because like IndyCar's fighting for their life sometimes, but I just feel like this format has done nothing to advance the sport in any way. And it seems like maybe, just maybe, there is some self-awareness taking place amongst the France family and the NASCAR executive committee, because I'd have to imagine some of those folks are on the committee for changing the playoff format. So it's certainly interesting to see all of this start to explode in August, when it seems like for whatever reason we have to figure this out at some point so we can get the last, slate of races set. Here's an idea. Just run the 10 best races you can at the end of the season and let the cards fall where they may. I don't think that you need to, structurally set everything up in a certain way to engineer a certain outcome. You could just put the 10 best, races possible at the end of the schedule and have a full season points format and make every race more meaningful again. But it seems like somebody, whether it be NBC or NASCAR, keeps holding the flow up here of change. And frankly, I think everybody and their mother is getting sick of it. I know that Joey Logano's title last year was not exactly popular. I don't necessarily disagree with the people that are upset with it, but at the same time, like, he still played within the rules that he was given and he came out on top. So I can't really hate on it in any way. And in fact, I call it the most efficient title campaign that we've seen in NASCAR history, because he didn't have to do a whole lot throughout the season to actually make it to the Final Four in Phoenix. He got one win in the regular season. It probably should have been two had Austin Dillon not tried to completely end his season right then and there at Richmond. But I think that a lot of the backlash to the playoff format, outside of the people that have always harped against it like me, has come from Logano coming out on top last year the way that he did, with not earning enough points really to make it, and then Alex Bowman getting surprise DQ'd for a weight imbalance at the Charlotte Roval to end the round of 12 last year that allowed Logano to be undisqualified from the round of 8 and then put back into the grid. So, yeah, it's certainly great to see a lot of people coming out in support of the full season points. I do think that that's the direction I'd like to see the sport go in, and it seems like the common sentiment is that that is what people want. The playoff format has been around this is season 12. I haven't seen anything in it compelling enough that hasn't, brought up problems of its own. Like, you look at last year's Martinsville race, that would never happen in a full season points format, where like multiple cars are holding other people up on purpose to, engineer a certain outcome, because the repercussions of the next race don't matter for those cars. So, yeah, I would like to see NASCAR move back to a full season points format, or move closer to something like the Chase, where maybe we run 30 races and then the last 6 are the Chase, and it's a grid of 10 to 12 drivers. Because at the end of the day, what the sport has lost in legitimacy with the playoff format just can't really be brought back with any sort of common alteration to it. It would be cool to see the winner get, any more attention, get more points, something along those lines to help propel them forward in the regular and postseason. But it just seems like NASCAR or NBC is so stuck in the mud with their ways that somebody is unwilling to change, and I'm not sure we're going to ever get the truth on who that is, unfortunately. So I know that was a lot of rambling, but believe me, I think that the NASCAR playoff format needs to go, if at all possible, and I would hope it will be gone as soon as next year.
You bring up a very interesting point of, was it really NBC, or was NASCAR saying it was the media? I get a sense NASCAR prefers to keep some sort of playoff, because I think the last thing they would want is to say, hey, we're reverting back to an all-season championship. Then all the people that weren't a fan see this was the best call, blah, blah, blah. I think NASCAR is sort of concerned about that image of, okay, we're ditching the playoffs, which, I mean, I get it what NBC is thinking. It's like, hey, we have these storyline drivers that are going to be eliminated. Moves that could, really try to gain that one extra point. Like everyone talks about the Hail Melon. Well, that move is banned, so can't see anything like that. Overall, I just feel this is just one of those deals where when it comes to the playoffs at NASCAR, they need some sort of format where I think you have it where if you got the most race wins in the season, you cannot just be eliminated early or lose to somebody that has won 2 wins, but they were just at the key times of the playoff. And just say, well, that's how the playoff works. They stepped it up for those 2 races, but they were just eating lunch really every other race for the first 26 rounds. There's a lot of improvement. I think the biggest one a lot of people would like to see change is this one race championship decides all.
Yes.
I mean,
that's got to go. That has to go at minimum.
We cannot. I mean, if Kyle Larson in that season where he came in with 9 wins, if he didn't get win number 10 in the championship, if he was stuck at 9 wins and somebody else got it, I think a lot more people will be critical of it. If Newman, like you said, if he did finish third and took the championship on that first year, then I think a lot of people have been like, what's going on? This was supposed to award winning, not consistency. But
I mean, 2020 should have killed it theoretically, right? I mean, Kevin Harvick had 9 wins through what, 27, right? No, 30 through 29 races. He had 9 wins through 29 races that year and didn't even make the final 4. And people just didn't care because they hated Kevin Harvick. And I think that's truly the catch-22 of all of this is that I don't think a lot of fans really care one way or the other what the championship format looks like. They care about their driver doing well and the drivers they don't like having failures like that. So they feel that this format probably in some ways, does dole out some justice to some people and then doesn't to others. And the people that it doesn't dole justice out to, they don't care about them. So it doesn't matter to them. So yeah, it's just it's one of those things where nobody in the NASCAR fan base seems to really care about the health of the sport enough to want to change it. And we're kind of getting to a point where people just don't care about the championship in general, and they only care about race wins like Denny Hamlin does, because he knows that getting to the Final Four is ridiculously hard and completely not within your control in a lot of cases. So yeah, it's so unfortunate that we have to keep having this conversation and we can't just have a full season points format and let the narratives, fall where they may. I mean, I've been having a lot of fun in IndyCar talking about Alex Palou and an F1 about Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris this year, even though the title's pretty much a runaway in both of those disciplines. And it'd be nice to be having a conversation about, let's see, the top 8 in points are separated by 127 points, which is about 2 races worth of points. So those drivers are still very much within a reasonable shot of winning this title. And I mean, heck, you even look at the top 6, it's only 71 points. You would think that would be compelling enough. Unfortunately, NASCAR doesn't seem to think so, or NBC doesn't seem to think so. And I'm glad people like Chase Elliott are finally speaking up about it and putting their words out there, because he's a guy that, much like Kevin Harvick, after he lost in 2020, came out of his car and said, we don't win titles like Petty and Earnhardt used to. It's really nice to see Chase Elliott, who ended up winning that very title that year, come out and basically parrot the same thing.
And that's the thing. You have past champions that are saying this. I think Ben had said on Grid Tonight 2 weeks ago, the fact that you have a driver that never won a championship under the old format saying they should go back to it. It just always seems NASCAR, and especially as we saw with Daniel Trott, Larry McReynolds, or even the Morning Drive folks, you bring up an idea that NASCAR has said, oh, we'll consider it. They just, nope, not moving backwards, or nope, that's not a good idea. Even with the option tire, originally Mike Bagley was really, nope, remember what they did at the All-Star race in Texas? That didn't work out. NASCAR, hey, we're going to bring the option tire for Richmond. Oh, NASCAR's making the right move. Unfortunately, nobody was talking about how great of a race it was, because Austin Dillon stole the show for all the wrong reasons that weekend. But overall, you bring up a good point. IndyCar, Their championship has been a runaway. Still, there's plenty of storylines. The battle for second place. If second place was the points lead, it'd be changing so often it'd be ridiculous. But one of the big things with IndyCar, their full season format, F1, their full season format, they have now a media company in their leadership, their organization. Liberty Media owns F1. IndyCar, well, I know the folks at Grid tonight will be going more into it. 1/3 of it's now owned by Fox. So that means now they're going to have somebody in the ownership group that's going to be thinking about how will this impact Fox? How will this impact TV? How does it impact media? Media has always have a say when they're putting out big money. They have a say on what day, what time the events should occur. They have the data suggesting that the ratings will be best maximized if we race on this time, this date. And they're putting a ton of money into NASCAR in the hopes that they get it back through ad revenue. Ad revenue will go up if the ratings go up. At what point, though, does NASCAR or any sport say no and reinforce their stance on, say, a championship format, start time, or the viewing experience for the fans?
It gets kind of complicated because a lot of this could be baked into contracts that we will never see the light of day for. Like, we're never going to see, like, a full breakdown of the TV contracts between Fox, Prime, TNT, NBC. We're never going to see these. They are never going to touch the light of day in our lifetimes. So we don't know exactly what's baked into those things. With that said, if for whatever reason a broadcast partner tries to say that, oh, well, changing this format, kind of voids our agreement with you, honestly, let them walk. I know that's insane to say because, NBC has, I believe, 14 races. Fox has 14 race weekends. And then the other 10 weeks that are left vacant are filled by TNT and Prime. And you definitely want that final stretch of the season to be on major television channels like a Fox, like an NBC, a CBS, an ABC, even a CW. But with that said, you also need to have a good working relationship with these people, and you can't be held hostage by a contract. At the end of the day, you are a sport. They invested money into this sport, and they trusted you with that money. And what you need to do is put on the best product possible. And the way to do that is by not throwing in 80,000 gimmicks into the points format to make it that way, or seeding every single start time possible. Sometimes we need to move the start time up 2 hours so that way we can actually get a race in on a particular race day, rather than singing the anthem, doing the invocation, getting the command, and then the skies open up and start pouring cats and dogs down. So, yeah, I do think that NASCAR's current leadership could use a bit more strong-arming to their advantage. Obviously, I don't think the Bill France way of just, swinging a big stick around like Teddy Roosevelt is going to work in today's day and age. But at a certain point, you got to stand up for yourself. And it just seems like the NASCAR upper brass are too concerned with lining their pockets and doing whatever the television networks tell them to do than doing what's best for the sport. And I think that you wouldn't be losing as many fans if you stopped kowtowing to the, wants of the minority in terms of the TV executives, and you start actually listening to the people that pay to show up to the races and that buy things off of the NASCAR store and at the haulers at the track. If you started listening more to those people instead of the people that are paying you to put a show on, then you might actually get some of those fans back that you either were never going to get with this playoff format or you lost with this playoff format. So, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, yes, TV has, contracts in place. They have set start times and stuff like that. But like NASCAR could probably be doing more to be a bit more assertive with their partnerships with the TV networks. And instead of even attempting to do that, they seem to just wilt away like a bunch of wussies. And it's frankly getting kind of frustrating as a fan to see, because it just seems like they're kowtowing to the peacock and to the fox at every possible opportunity, rather than asserting themselves as the main reason that auto racing is still such a big thing in America. Like, if it wasn't for NASCAR, who's carrying the torch? F1, IndyCar, they're hardly pulling in 1 million people per race. Like, NASCAR is still pulling in multi-million viewers into every single race, and at least for the Cup Series. And I think that if NASCAR wanted to throw their weight around a little bit more, they totally could, but they just don't. And then they probably go and lie about other people and other networks, saying that they're the problem when they're the ones that are constantly getting in the way of progress. So I don't know. It's really hard to say, because, like I said, we'll never see what those contracts look like and see what NASCAR and NBC and all of them baked into it. But frankly, it's getting kind of old seeing NASCAR just wilt at every possible opportunity to, show some strength or signs of life.
Yeah, NASCAR, I mean, they have control of the ratings when it comes to motorsports in the United States. I mean, we've seen F1 sometimes put a race at the same time as NASCAR. NASCAR has won. I can't understand why still IndyCar puts themselves in races at the same time as NASCAR, because we've seen NASCAR has won. I mean, we used to have a lot more Saturday night races in the Cup Series with Bristol, Richmond. I mean, quite a few races, and then they all went away because TV said, "Oh, you get low ratings." Well, we kept Bristol, and Richmond, I believe, is going to be a night race. I feel like that's some parts of the motorsport identity of occasional Saturday night races. Shouldn't be down to just one. I feel there is a point where they have to say, okay, look, I get it. Your data says this is the best bet. This is the best way to get intrigue. I mean, honestly, though, the NASCAR, they have a product where NBC put in all the billions of dollars. That should be enough. I don't see this occurring in, I'd assume it doesn't occur, but I don't follow NFL, NBA, others where it's the media trying to dictate how to do things. But overall, I just feel like that's a specific role that's mainly broadcasting and giving advice, yeah, but having an active role in what's the best championship for them. Bless you. I just feel that's out of their realm. With that said, though, it does bring up one question. I think we'll make this the last question for the NASCAR bid. Considering how NASCAR is still privately owned, the France family, you look at IndyCar, now Fox has ownership in that, 1/3. Liberty Media owns F1 and now MotoGP, 2 racing series. Does this leave NASCAR in a vulnerable place as the only privately owned company without any media stake in the ownership?
I don't think it leaves them in a vulnerable spot at all. Actually, I think it's probably better for them that they don't have someone trying to have a controlling interest in the company other than the teams, probably, which, if we're going off of like any other professional American sport, you look at the MLS, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB. None of those are owned by anybody. Let's get that on the table first. Nobody owns sports leagues in America. It's more of a trade organization, it seems, in a lot of these cases, where they are collectively owned by the people that run the other teams in the sport. which is why in the NFL, a lot of fans unwittingly think that Roger Goodell owns the NFL because he's the commissioner, but that is not how it works. Roger Goodell was voted by the 32 owners of each individual NFL team, which are known as the Board of Governors of the NFL. He was voted in by them to be a controlling interest for them. And NASCAR is trying to, rename their executive staff to give off the impression that that's what they're like too, but they're not. And while I don't love the fact that the France family still owns the sport and that the teams don't have a controlling interest like they really should, because I feel like the people that are actually putting themselves at risk every weekend are the people that should probably be the ones behind the boards and, directing the ship. But unfortunately, that's not the case. It's still better that the France family is running the show than if a media company or entity hedged their way into the sport instead. I don't think this is a good move for IndyCar. I really don't. I really hate this move. And while with F1, I can't say it's been like the worst thing ever. They've seen unprecedented growth since Liberty Media bought into it. You still had stuff happen like the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that was royally messed up and completely compromised the entire integrity of Formula One as a whole by how they decided to finish that season out. And the decisions they clearly made to make a good Netflix product more than to make a real racing series. It does bring me some optimism that NASCAR isn't trying to get like IndyCar and like Formula One, because honestly, with the kind of broadcast quality that IndyCar has had to suffer through this year with Fox, does not leave me with a very fond taste in my mouth seeing that Fox has decided to buy into the series at a very reduced rate. I felt like when I saw the price tag that Fox paid in to get a third stake of the IndyCar series, I was like, wow, buying into the IndyCar series is relatively cheap. And if you just wanted to do it and you had a large sum of money, you probably could pull it off. But yeah, it doesn't really make me feel one way or the other about NASCAR's like future prospects, because they're still number one in America. I think if the teams were the ones controlling the ship with NASCAR, I'd be in like the ideal place with how NASCAR is being run. But the France family, it's like the devil versus, a media company trying to get in. I think this kind of stems back to how NBC may or may not have, any sort of involvement in how the playoff format is being orchestrated right now or being revamped. We'd have those kinds of speculations times 1,000 if they owned a stake in the sport. So I would rather it be in the hands that it's in now, as problematic and as selfish and as negligent as they can be, then I would have a media conglomerate have any sort of control or any sort of say over the decision-making process of the NASCAR Cup Series or any NASCAR series for that matter. So I don't think NASCAR is in a vulnerable spot by any stretch, other than they're in a vulnerable spot to the teams in this court case to get the sport unowned and have it be in control of the teams, much like CART was at one point in time. So honestly, like I said, though I don't love the direction NASCAR is in right now, I certainly would love it far more than I do love the direction IndyCar is deciding to go in with its ownership.
The ownership of IndyCar, I know that'll be a big topic on Grid tonight. NASCAR, I remember the rumors of, Disney wanted to buy into NASCAR. And NASCAR held out saying no. Now we're going to see, we've been seeing all over this campaign of F1 and Disney are going to be together. And I just see the Mickey Mouse jokes, especially if we get some new playoff format or whatever. But it's interesting times to see how media is starting to grow outside the world media, in my opinion. Of course, Iowa hosting the Cup Series race tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern. We'll be on there approximately 90 minutes after that race. Tanner, along with that, we also have Formula One early in the morning, dinner break before NASCAR. And overall, the Hungarian Grand Prix is the last race before the big summer break. Charles Leclerc claimed a surprise pole. Even he, when he responded, "What?" when they told him, "You're on pole." This track is hard to pass on. Do you think that Ferrari could hold off the McLarens and win?
I don't think he makes it past turn one without Oscar passing him. Maybe that's bad, but I don't know. Oscar Piastri has clearly shown throughout this year that he is that guy. He is going to make any move necessary, but he's going to do it in a measured way. He's not like a wily driver that is kind of like a wild horse, completely untamed but super fast. I think that didn't he get his very first career win here last year, if I'm not mistaken, Joe?
Yep, right here at the Hungarian ring. So
yeah, with that very controversial team orders swap between Norris and Piastri there towards the end of the race. With that said, though, I think that Piastri was only, I believe, less than a half tenth off of Leclerc, and based on the long run pace that the McLarens have shown this year, I have no reason to believe that they're going to come out of this weekend behind that Ferrari, because I don't know, nothing against Leclerc at all. I think that he is a very, very, very strong driver. I just don't think the Ferrari, even with its improvements, is all that good right now. So with that said, as much as Leclerc probably does have the best shot he's had all season to get another win, I'm definitely leaning towards the Papayas ruling the weekend as they have most of the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Papaya rule. They're going to be dominant, hard to beat. For Max Verstappen, this race does not look like it's going to be fun. Starting eighth behind, of course, Charles Leclerc, two McLarens, George Russell. But then the two Aston Martins, Lance Stroll qualified ahead of him. And Gabriel Borratello in the Sauber too.
Do you think Aston Martin is trying to show him, hey, look what you left on the table for next year? We're starting to actually make some improvements.
Make improvements. And then, of course, we know with Sauber, and they're switching to become Audi. They're coming off a podium at Silverstone. We know Red Bull has now had a big change in leadership. Do you think this weekend, especially Yuki Tsunoda, still failed to get out of Q1, Max Verstappen 8th. Is this a sign of sort of that growing pain, that transition of change in leadership and the lack of chemistry within the team?
I mean, I just think it's showing the greater cracks that we've already seen develop from the end of last season throughout this season. I've been harping on Red Bull all season that they somehow made a car that's incapable of making a pass on the racetrack without a significant tire advantage. I just don't think that they've shown enough raw pace to, justify saying that they're a title contender. I think everybody and their mother thought that the McLarens were going to slow down when this flexi wing ban took in effect, and what have they done? Just continued to dominate. With that said, I think that Red Bull should probably just be using the rest of the year to run out this chassis, and they should be using the rest of this season to really build up for next year, especially because I believe they're going to have a new power unit with Ford behind the engines next year. And yeah, I think that right now, with all this leadership turnover right before the summer break, it's probably a good time to recalibrate for them. I mean, this weekend's already clearly a wash, starting 8th and, out of Q1 for Yuki as well. I think that this weekend's definitely going to be a wash for them, and I think that if they're smart, they'll start calibrating for next season and the new rules package that's going to be taking into effect. But knowing Red Bull, they're stubborn. They're full of just extremely stubborn people, starting with Max Verstappen on down. They'll probably still continue to try to contend and push the rest of 2025 to make a fast car out of this. But I think that what they should be trying to do is find what makes Yuki comfortable and try to find what makes Max comfortable and try to meet somewhere in the middle. Because right now they've engineered a car that can't pass other cars and constantly just gets stuck, even with like a tire advantage over Charles Leclerc last week, just stayed within a second of him the entire race. Like, that's just unacceptable in a Ferrari that has not really shown a whole lot of pace at times this year. So while I think that Red Bull should be, like I said, gearing up for next season right now, especially with this like nearly month-long break that we're about to see in Formula One, I think what they're going to try to do instead is just keep digging themselves deeper like they have been. And next year they're going to fall completely on their face and the bottom is going to fall out as well. So, Godspeed to Red Bull. And I believe is it Jonathan Mekes that is taking over as team principal there?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Godspeed to them, and good for you guys getting Max back for next year. But, I mean, honestly, just take the L this year. It's not going to happen. He's not going to equal Michael's 5 straight titles like he wanted to. It just is what it is. Chalk it up, eat your crow, come back stronger next year. But unfortunately, I just don't think that's what they're going to do. And it's going to lead to an even worse 2026 with a new power unit that they don't really have a whole lot of testing done with yet.
Yeah, they're not in a good spot, and overall, they don't seem to know which direction they want to go. It's just they are in a mess, and now it's catching up to them just like it did to Honda MotoGP team. Mark Marquez couldn't make that work no more. He bailed, and now Honda, they're lucky if they're in the top 10. Just one of those deals will be following. Of course, Formula One, NASCAR this race weekend. We also have World Rally Championship underway and IMSA. With that said, let's get to pick a winner, Tanner. And we got...
I made some ground up last weekend. Hey, look at that.
made up some ground. Matthew Bro reclaimed the lead, but it's only by 1 point. So we encourage everyone to comment who you think is going to win because we have NASCAR, Formula One. Starting with NASCAR, Tanner, who do you see winning the Iowa Corn 350?
I see Ryan Blaney going back-to-back next question.
Wow, that's very simple. I think it could be a Chevrolet driver.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with, he put in a lot of laps in practice. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson to get the win. And try
he
to
had
get
a very strong car last year prior to his wreck with Denny Hamlin and Daniel Suarez. So that's a solid pick. Indeed.
And then Formula One, I think it might be a sweep, but let's see. Who do you got winning the Hungarian Grand Prix?
I've got Oscar Piastri winning that one. I think that he is finally going to pull out of that tie with Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris with 8 race wins and get his 9th and pull ahead.
I think so too. Oscar Piastri, he won here last year. He is the driver to beat. I think he's going to have a better start and get around Charles Leclerc before you know it. And then it's game over because that track is notoriously hard for passing. Encourage everyone to share their comments with us for pick a winner. In the chat room, Adam has Chase Briscoe for Iowa, the pole sitter. And then the pole sitter for Hungary, Charles Leclerc. It'd be interesting. We could see both pole sitters win. I can't think of a race weekend where only the pole sitters won. That's just way too hard in this modern era of motorsports. With
Indeed.
that said, we will go ahead and head on out. Encourage everyone subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss our program tomorrow when we wrap up everything. And of course, busy week with Grid Encore, Grid tonight, and then the special Portland Grand Prix coverage. Alex Palou trying to claim the championship. And of course, you have Paddle Ward trying to deny him a championship. We'll have the special pre-race coverage. and Thursday update, Friday update right here on the Grid Network. So subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then find the thumbnail of our pre-race show. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss that in a couple next Sunday when we are at Portland International Raceway. For Tanner, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time and enjoy the races.